Just an embarrassing show, my mother-in-law said as she forced a plate upon me. Jenny threw it, then smirked. Hours later, I emptied their house. I stood in my kitchen this morning, slowly toasting bread and battling waves of sickness. Even though I was in my 5th month of pregnancy and my morning sickness should have subsided, today was particularly difficult. The strong July sunlight pouring in through the window seemed to make my stomach churn even more. I found a little bit of comfort by leaning my forehead against the cool marble countertop. "Kate, are you okay?" Michael's worried voice came through my phone. "Yeah, I'm fine," I managed. I attempted to sound upbeat, but my voice sounded a lot weaker than I wanted it to. "The baby is fine too," I mentioned, adding that it had moved a bit this morning, and I heard a sigh of relief on the other end. Michael was away on a 3-week work trip, heading up a major IT project in Boston as the project manager. Typically, his business trips were just a few days long, but this one was a big project with a new client. I knew it was a significant chance for his career. But currently, those 3 weeks seemed like forever. In particular, these mornings in this house were the hardest to endure. We'd been married for a couple of years. Life hadn't always been like this. 2 years ago, while I was studying accounting at a well-regarded university in Chicago, I met Michael at my best friend's wedding, which was at the First Presbyterian Church of Greenwich. I was instantly captivated by his kind smile and genuine nature. We had our first conversation as light shone through the church's colorful stained glass windows. After dating for 12 months, we made our marriage commitments in that very same church. At the time, Patricia, my husband's mother, expressed her approval of our union openly. Being a former high school teacher and considered a cornerstone of the local church, she always displayed perfect etiquette. She organized the very best catering at our wedding, and there was an extravagant party with 300 people attending. My sister-in-law, Jenny, on the other hand, acted rather distant at the wedding. After experiencing a divorce and returning to her childhood home, she seemed to accept me as the newest member of the family. Ultimately, we all ended up living together in Michael's family home because of its dimensions, and most crucially, my mother-in-law's strong desire for it. This colonial revival-style home, situated in a tranquil residential neighborhood of Greenwich, actually was large enough for all 4 of us. With its line of white columns gracing the porch, a perfectly manicured front lawn, and antique furnishings everywhere, I attempted to adapt to this fancy setting with my new family for the first 6 months. Everything took a turn when they discovered I was expecting a baby. My mother-in-law began to demonstrate clear disapproval of me when morning sickness kept me stuck in bed. Even though I had morning sickness when I was pregnant, I managed to do all the household chores. She would remark, her words dripping with judgment. After Sunday church services, she started subtly mentioning my supposed laziness during those church get-togethers. My sister-in-law, Jenny, slowly showed her true colors, too. Despite the fact that her job should have had her tied up selling houses, she'd come back when I was feeling awful, purposefully making a racket and dousing herself in overpowering perfume. She would flaunt pricey name-brand purses as if they were trophies, and her whole demeanor implied that my sickness was just a performance. I always push through the nausea, trying my best to manage it. Even though I'm in and out of the bathroom constantly, and the sound of ice makes me cringe, their attitude never budges. It seems like neither of them even attempts to empathize with how I feel. Instead, they treat my illness like a way to get out of work. Recently, their stares have become noticeably more hostile. Even as we speak, I'm trying to disappear, hearing my mother-in-law and sister-in-law's hushed voices drifting from the kitchen. Michael is talking on the phone, but my mind is clouded and detached. Living in this gorgeous house feels like it's shackling me. I can feel the mood in this place getting darker and darker as time goes on. Michael not being here makes that feeling even more intense. I feel the baby stir a little inside, and I try to ignore my bad feelings. The fierce summer sun pours through the holes in the heavy drapes. Although the air conditioner is on, the air in the living room feels oppressively heavy and close. As the old clock chimes 10, I settle on the leather couch. That happy tone I used with Michael on our phone call this morning feels like something from ages ago now. This constant morning sickness isn't letting up, and the lightheadedness and exhaustion weigh me down like a ton of bricks. I have cold sweat trickling down my spine, and my silk blouse clinging to my skin just makes the nausea worse. The incessant chirping of the cicadas outside appears to echo inside my own skull. Even the regular ticking of the grandfather clock, which I inherited from my grandmother, is now causing a feeling of sickness that makes my stomach churn. "It's horribly hot out today. I don't feel well," I murmured under my breath. Feeling the baby give a tiny movement inside me, I automatically put my hand on my stomach. Perhaps this sickness will settle down if I just take a nap. As I shut my eyes and let out a heavy breath, I hear my mother-in-law and sister-in-law's voices coming from the entryway. Their voices sound artificially bright, as if they are pretending I'm not even here. After finishing their makeup in the master bedroom, the sound of their feet as they come down the staircase reaches me. Their expensive Christian Louboutin heels hit the marble floor with a consistent, seemingly purposeful noise. It almost feels like they are trying to make me feel even more nauseous. Those footsteps somehow represent how uncomfortable I feel in this home. I'm still lying down. Patricia gazes down at me, her makeup perfectly applied. There's not even a hint of care in her expression. Instead, it's saturated with disdain. Behind her, Jenny casts a knowing glance my way while reapplying her Chanel lipstick. I felt their presence subtly screaming how much I didn't belong here. The overpowering smell of their fragrances permeated the stale atmosphere. The sickening aroma attacked my sense of smell, which triggered another bout of feeling sick. As I struggled with all my might to keep it down, Patricia leveled a cold, hard look at me. Her eyes expressed the same disdain I imagined she had when she was a high school teacher, looking down on her students. Get a grip on yourself and stop this embarrassing show. You can do the chores. Her voice was clearly annoyed. While I was expecting, things were so difficult. Still, I kept going for the sake of my loved ones. Her words felt like yet another addition to the pile of snide comments I'd heard repeatedly over time. Jenny produces a tiny mirror from her fancy purse and talks as she primly fixes her hair. Are you truly feeling ill, or is it all for show? Her words were loaded with sarcasm. The resentment that had grown inside her ever since her divorce was now aimed at me as pure spite. As I felt almost suffocated by their cold, cruel vibes, I desperately attempted to sit up straight. Right then, a fresh surge of sickness hit me, and a grimace involuntarily crossed my face. Upon seeing my face, Jenny's expression twisted into a clear sneer. Her smile now openly showed the hostility she had made a feeble attempt to hide before. If you're so sick, why don't you just go to the hospital? Patricia says with malicious intent. Before I can respond, she walks over to the china cabinet and pulls out a very expensive porcelain plate. I need you to wash the dish. It's been sitting there since the day before. That plate was from a special set that we got as a wedding present, a gift from the women's group at the church. Before I could even say anything, Jenny snatched the plate away. There was a peculiar glint in her eyes. It felt like something hidden for ages about to come out. I'm heading out. Keep the place tidy, okay? With that, she threw the plate at me. The white porcelain seemed to float through the air in slow motion. I automatically put up my arm to shield my face, and a sharp pain erupted in my left arm. The plate struck my arm and broke, sending pieces everywhere on the floor. The shattering sound reverberated through the quiet house almost like thunder. Oh my hand must have slipped, Jenny said, a smile in her voice. As I dealt with the agonizing pain, I gripped my left arm tightly. Red spots were slowly expanding on my blouse sleeve. That crimson stain seemed to embody all the pain of the recent days finally made real. That was your mistake, Patricia, she stated without emotion, beginning to walk toward the door. Be sure you clean this up before we return. The normalcy in her tone just made the whole situation seem even more surreal. Their footsteps on their heels faded away. Their heavy high heels fading away. The heavy sound of their high heels faded away. The heavy front door slammed shut, and then there was only silence. The small white shards of porcelain on the floor shone with a sad light as the sun came up. It was like they were a reminder of how easily our calm routines had just fallen apart. The ache in my left arm slowly started to lose its sharp edges, becoming a deeper, more constant throb. Yet it was odd, but my head felt very clear. The sick feeling and the terror I'd been experiencing seemed to have broken apart, just like the plate. Instead, an unfamiliar power started to well up inside of me. I got to my feet slowly. Once I got the broken plate pieces cleaned up, I used an app to get a ride and decided to go to the emergency room at Greenwich Hospital. Even while I sat in the waiting room, the pain in my left arm seemed to give me more determination. When they took me into the examining room, it was too cold, even though it was summer. I sat down on the pristine white examination table and carefully pushed up the sleeve of my shirt. A dull stab of pain went through me with each tiny movement. A woman, Dr. Thompson, who looked to be in her middle years, spoke to me in a courteous way. The name tag, reading Dr. Sarah Walker, quietly reflected the light on her white coat. She carefully examined my arm and then released a long, heavy breath. Her fingers shook a little as she typed her notes into the computer. These are definite indications of violence, she said, her voice a blend of professional detachment and a real human concern. Would you mind if I take some pictures? And you might also want to think about reporting this to the police. Violence against pregnant women is something we take very seriously. I gave a quiet nod. As the doctor documented the marks on my body with pictures from every side, it became apparent in my thoughts what I needed to do next. With every flash of the camera in the room, it sunk in that I couldn't take any more. When the medical document was handed to me, I could feel my hands trembling a bit. It wasn't apprehension, but a newfound resolve about what I was about to do. While carefully putting together the medical findings and pictures, Dr. Walker would occasionally give me a worried look. "Where do you go for your prenatal appointments?" she inquired, and I gave her the name of my clinic. We should get in touch with them as well, just in case. Before leaving the examining room, Dr. Walker put her hand on my shoulder. "You have more support than you realize." Those words gave me a boost. Making my way down the hospital hallway, I looked at my phone to see what time it was. It was just after 11:30 in the morning. A little bit after noon, I started making some calls from my vehicle. Initially, I reached out to Wright & Sons, the premier moving service in Greenwich. The person who answered the phone, sensing my urgency, got right to it. As I listened to the details about the last-minute moving costs, I grew even more determined. "Yes, can you manage the move today?" My voice sounded more composed than I thought it would. During our chat about the price quote, I pulled up the pictures of my grandfather's house deed on my phone. In truth, my grandfather had acquired this home in my name. I had kept this to myself when I got married, hoping to keep things peaceful with my new in-laws. Now, this decision to stay quiet would prove to be an unexpected blessing. I then phoned up another moving company, Express Movers. At the same time, I asked them to verify the original deed that was kept at the bank. The bank employee, as if they understood what was going on, said they'd take care of it right away. While everything was being set up, I sat in the hospital parking lot, trying to figure out what I should do next. Every once in a while, I could feel the baby moving, and it made me certain that I was making the right choice. The first moving truck showed up right at 2 in the afternoon. Once the huge white truck was parked outside, the movers immediately started their work. The commotion caused several of the local women to come and see what was happening. These were women who'd also been having a tough time dealing with my mother-in-law's bossy behavior. "Kate, are you okay?" Sarah Henderson, who lived across the street, raced over, looking concerned. When she saw the bandage on my arm, her face showed worry. "We've been worried. Patricia has been a bit of a handful, particularly lately." "It's all right, we'll help," Linda Garner offered as she began sorting through the kitchen things. Woman after woman from the neighborhood came by, quietly pitching in to pack. Some of them even brought lemonade and sandwiches they had made themselves. Surrounded by all this kindness and support, I suddenly understood that I hadn't actually been on my own. Things went surprisingly well as we worked. Boxes were filled with essential paperwork, clothes, and treasured objects, and then brought to the truck one by one. Sarah made sure to carefully wrap my cherished photo albums, while Linda assisted in organizing the kitchen utensils. My neighbors pitched in, and the whole process of sorting and packing my possessions turned out better than I thought it would. Even though I felt sick to my stomach several times, Linda's lemon water actually helped. I spoke softly as I carefully placed an old clock inside a box, saying, "This is a memento from my grandmother." It seemed that the memories connected to each thing felt different within me now, compared to how they had felt before. The movers also seemed to be extra cautious with everything, possibly being mindful of the fact that I am pregnant. As the final piece of furniture was removed as dusk arrived, the house felt remarkably hollow. The fatting sunlight filtering in through the rooms created eerie shadows on the floor. My mother-in-law's crystal vases that she'd always showcased, and my sister-in-law's collection of designer stuff were all gone, which made the rooms feel soothingly quiet. The outlines on the walls where paintings had hung seemed to taunt me somehow. When I got to the new apartment, all of the furniture was already set up. It was located on the upper level of a fancy building, a little ways from Greenwich Avenue. After stopping at the real estate office on my way home from the hospital, I was able to sign the paperwork immediately as a new resident, since it had already been arranged. The security was great, with staff always at the front desk. The expansive windows provided a panorama of the Long Island Sound, colored by the setting sun. I inhaled deeply as I settled onto the new couch. From this elevated vantage point, I felt a feeling of freedom, like I was escaping all the stress I'd been feeling. My fingers shook as I punched in Michael's digits. Eventually, his voice came through the receiver. "Michael, what I'm about to share with you could be difficult to accept." My voice was soft but resolute. Just as I was about to share all that was happening, a notification popped up on my phone. It was from Sarah, and it contained images of the house after the move. When I saw those photos of the empty house, a strange sense of release washed over me. Beyond the window, the evening sky started to become a dark shade of violet. The deepening color seemed to symbolize the start of my new existence. The baby shifted subtly within my womb. I put my hand there and I began to explain everything that had occurred to Michael. Later that evening, Patricia and Jenny got back, carrying shopping bags from Whole Foods. Even though the summer days are lengthy, it was pitch black by then, and a welcoming light emanated from the windows of the nearby homes. However, their house alone was shrouded in an unusual darkness. "That's odd," Patricia remarked, her expression suspicious. Old maple trees danced in the breeze, their shadows creating strange shapes on the moonlit ground. "Is that girl pretending to be ill again and sleeping?" "I swear she's absolutely no help at all." Jenny twists the key, then swings the heavy front door open. Her fingers locate the light switch in the shadows, flicking it to the on position. As the fluorescent lights begin to illuminate the space, both of us let out a gasp. "What in the world?" The voice was nearly a shout, like we'd encountered a specter. The fancy console table, the antique mirror that had been handed down through our family, all of it had vanished. Where those classic carpets should have been resting, there were only dusty footprints remaining. On the walls, the shadows of where paintings used to hang stood out, as if they were taunting us about how things used to be. That woman couldn't have possibly done this. Jenny rushes to where the china cabinet used to be. My treasured collection of wine glasses, the complete set of Limoges dishes I bought in Paris. Every last piece had disappeared without leaving a single clue. A light layer of dust swirled at her feet, and the empty shelves were showing their desolation. Patricia hurries upstairs to check the second floor. The sound of her expensive heels hitting the stairs resonated strangely in the hollow house. "I just can't believe any of this." Her scream from upstairs mixed fury with sheer terror. All of a sudden, the doorbell chimed. The sound echoed extraordinarily loud in the empty house. When we opened the door, 2 security guards dressed in black suits were standing right there. "Excuse me, but who are you?" the stern-faced guard inquired, asking for identification. Their demeanor spoke volumes about their exhaustion. Just at that moment, bright headlights shined in from outside. With the sound of tires crunching on gravel, car doors slammed shut. With quick steps, Michael ran inside. It was a surprise homecoming from Boston. His suit was creased, and his tie seemed to pose a question. His face was a blend of bewilderment, rage, and profound sorrow. With a gasp, he asked what could have possibly transpired. His tone conveyed feelings he'd kept bottled up for ages. Behind him, the security personnel watched the scene discreetly but attentively. The cool air entering the doorway produced a soft reverberation inside the vacant dwelling. At that instant, I drove up from my new home. The noise of my black Volvo slowly coming to a stop in front of the house broke the heavily charged atmosphere. As I stepped out, the bandage on my arm stood out starkly white in the darkness. Everyone was waiting, anxious, as I cautiously exited the vehicle using the mannerisms of someone expecting a child. The instant Patricia moved toward me, the security guards quickly positioned themselves between us. "Mrs. Thompson, are you okay?" They assumed positions meant to make sure I was safe. Their actions spoke of the experience of professional security. "Kate, what's happening?" Michael approached me. His voice was a mix of confusion and concern. At that precise moment, I quietly pulled out my smartphone. The screen of the newest iPhone displayed the surveillance video footage from that morning. The instant of the plate shattering, the scene of me shielding my arm, everything was caught in detail. Even without sound, anyone watching could comprehend what had taken place. "This is what happened this morning," I said evenly. I could feel my voice shaking. My voice shook just a little, although it wasn't because I was scared. I felt a thrill from the newfound freedom after the previous tension was gone. Then I pulled the crucial papers out of my bag. This included the house deed, which I got when my grandfather passed away, and the hospital report. The truth is, the house is legally mine. Suddenly, everything went completely still. It was so silent, you could hear the sound of everyone waiting and holding their breath. As Michael read through everything, his face started to change. It was especially true after he saw the pictures in the medical report. His expression became obviously angry. Under the bright lights, his face lost all color. "Mother, sister, what is going on?" His voice broke the silence of the night. The loud tone made me involuntarily recoil a bit. "You threw a plate at her. You were violent towards my wife, who is pregnant." His hands were shaking while he held the medical report. You could see really strong emotions in his hands, which I'd never witnessed him show previously. Jenny tried to make justifications. "Oh, I just dropped it." Yet Michael raised his hand in a commanding gesture, stopping what she was saying. He had a very determined look in his eyes. I'd never seen that before. "That's enough." Those 3 words conveyed a decision that couldn't be undone. Patricia tried to fight it one last time. Standing up straight as if trying to pull herself together like a seasoned teacher, she started to say, "Michael, we just..." But she stopped talking when she saw the coldness in her son's eyes. You could see all the strength leaving her shoulders. "Stay away from us, both of you," Michael said, his voice quiet but firm. I noticed a firmness in his tone, nothing like the wavering I'd heard before. I guess I ordered security to make sure those 2 were escorted out. I wanted them to take just the bare necessities and leave right away. The sound of the clock hitting 9 o'clock felt incredibly significant. Patricia and Jenny started gathering the things they absolutely needed. The security detail watched over them as they did. They quickly crammed their possessions into those fancy, pricey designer bags. They seemed so different, like they'd lost all their pride and their bossy attitude, just a worn-out mom and her daughter now. Their shadows, stretched out on the wall by the moonlight, looked all warped and strange. Glancing at the bandage on my arm, Michael quietly said he was sorry. There was genuine regret in his voice for all the years that had gone by. A year later, things were completely different for us. Right after my mother-in-law and sister-in-law were taken from the house by security, Michael started getting ready for our new life. We lived in a temporary place for a few months while the apartment was being renovated to our taste. At last, 2 months before the Bobbies were expected, we were able to move into our new home. The view from our apartment on the 42nd floor in Greenwich is just beautiful. The sun makes the waves of Long Island Sound look like they're covered in sparkling diamonds. The modern living room is bathed in soft shadows from the light flooding in through the huge windows. Unlike our old life, which was filled with heavy old furniture, everything here is new and reflects how we want to live. Emily and James, I go over to the matching cribs and softly talk to the twins who are awake. Their dark, shiny hair and almond-shaped eyes remind me so much of Michael, and they look up at me with smiles that seem heavenly. After dealing with terrible morning sickness during the later stages of my pregnancy, our children were safely delivered last winter. I can still picture the shock and pure happiness when the doctor announced we were expecting twins. The living room has a dining table positioned near the huge windows, ready for breakfast. A wonderful smell of fresh bread, purchased from the local organic bakery, drifts across the table. The bright kitchen counter, where I've placed a few houseplants, already has the coffee maker prepared so that we can have a quiet morning. This calm scene in the morning represents the new life we created over the past year since that day. Michael, after wrapping up the Boston project last year, was offered a job by a headhunter at a Silicon Valley company with better terms. However, he chose to move to the consulting department of an IT company in Greenwich to put our family first. His choice to value time with you all and the kids really brought us even closer. He does, in fact, get home at a reasonable hour every single day and actively helps out with the kids, from their baths to putting them down for the night. Plus, we've started enjoying weekend brunches with the families nearby more often. Specifically, we're really close with Sarah and Linda, who gave us some help on that day. Since the twins arrived, they offered to watch the kids. When Linda says, "Your joy is our joy," it always makes me feel good inside. We've also got to know some people around here, and we all help each other out with the kids and swap advice. Every once in a while, we get an update on Patricia and Jenny. Word is, they're in a budget apartment out in the boonies. They don't live like they used to, and Jenny's real estate career tanked, not performing like it once did. The worst part was the church community, where people already thought Patricia was pretty full of herself. The fact that she hit her grandchild was considered unforgivable, and after losing her standing at church, she switched congregations, but never got back to where she was before. But what's even worse, from what I hear, is how bad their mother-daughter relationship has gotten. They're stuck in that tiny apartment together and supposedly spend all their time pointing fingers. Whenever Patricia starts in, Jenny fires back with, "Mom, you should have kept your cool." Their arguing just keeps getting worse, and even though they're in the same place, they hardly talk anymore. They can't move out because they can't afford it, and there's no sign of them making up. It seems like the mess they're in is just a result of their own pride and envy. It's so crazy. The plate she chucked at me was actually a wedding present from the ladies at church. The shattering of everything marked a significant shift in our journey. Following that, the event became a common subject within our town, shared as a lesson regarding the dangers of abuse within a home. The Christian community, in particular, saw violence against a woman expecting a child as a truly awful transgression. Michael walks into the space where we all are, beaming at our children. He lifts each of them, giving them soft kisses. He's not that uncertain man he used to be. Instead, he's now a partner who fiercely protects our family with unwavering resolve. I do sometimes see a dark look come over his face when he thinks of his mother and sister, but even that is instantly soothed away by the children's smiles. I gaze out the window, looking at the city as it's lit up by the sunlight of the day. The weight of the past won't be able to cause us pain anymore. Looking out from up here, I feel it mirrors how bright our family's future is. The sound of the twins laughing fills our home as we start a fresh new day. Every now and then, when I run my hand over the scar on my stomach, the happenings of that day reappear in my head, quickly flashing before my eyes. However, the memories are something I hold close to my heart, as they're precious, signifying the start of our new life together.